All right, today we are jumping into one of the absolute cornerstones of English literature, Geoffrey Chaucer's general prologue to the Canterbury Tales. So what if I told you that the best snapshot of an entire society, I mean everyone from the most noble knight to the rowdiest peasant, came from a single road trip? It sounds kind of impossible, right? But that is exactly what Chaucer gives us. The book, of course, is the Canterbury Tales. And through its absolutely brilliant opening, the general prologue, Chaucer introduces us to this amazing, motley crew of strangers whose personalities and stories just paint this incredibly vivid picture of the 14th century. So you have to wonder, what on earth could bring such a wildly diverse group of people together in one place? Well, the answer is a springtime pilgrimage. Let's set the scene. Picture this. It's April. Everything's coming back to life, and that energy makes people want to get out and travel. And just by chance, this group of 29 pilgrims all end up at the same place, the Tabard Inn in Southwark, right outside London, all heading to the same destination. They're on a pilgrimage to the shrine of Saint Thomas Becket in Canterbury. But here's the thing you have to understand about the 14th century. A pilgrimage wasn't always this super solemn religious event. It was also a huge social gathering, a chance for an adventure. Honestly, for some folks, it was basically a spring break vacation. And this whole setup, it's a really clever literary trick called a frame narrative. The pilgrimage itself is the frame that holds all the different characters' individual stories together. It's the perfect excuse for Chaucer to bring all these people from different walks of life into one epic tale. And through this frame, we get this absolutely spectacular look at medieval society. I mean, Chaucer essentially puts an entire social pyramid on horseback and sends them down the road together. Now, our guide on this journey is a character who also happens to be named Chaucer, and this is so important. You have to separate Chaucer, the friendly, kind of naive narrator, from Chaucer, the actual author. Because it's in that gap between the two that the real Chaucer hides all of his cleverest and sharpest social commentary. You see, this narrator's naivete is the perfect vehicle for irony. He'll praise a character for something that we, the audience, are totally meant to see as a flaw. This gap between what he says and what is actually meant becomes Chaucer's secret weapon for critiquing his society. But to really get the satire, to understand the jokes, we first need to meet the ideal. We need a benchmark. And for Chaucer, that ideal starts with the knight. The knight is the very first pilgrim we meet, and he basically serves as the moral compass for the entire trip. He is the absolute gold standard for his social class. He's the guy everyone else is measured against. When the narrator praises the knight, it's completely straightforward. There's zero irony here. This quote pretty much sums up his entire existence. He is the living, breathing embodiment of the chivalric code. And his resume? Flawless. He's a veteran of huge religious wars, but he's totally humble. He doesn't show off. The fact that his tunic is still stained from his armor proves he is the real deal, a man of action, not appearances. He's literally just gotten back from war and is going straight to Canterbury to give thanks. Okay, so now that we have our perfect, shining example of virtue, Chaucer immediately flips the script. He starts to explore that massive gap between how people are supposed to be and how they actually are. And this really illustrates the central conflict in the prologue. On one side, you have the ideal, the knight, and on the other, you have the real, especially members of the clergy, who are supposed to be all about poverty and piety, but are often obsessed with worldly things like money, fine food, and fancy clothes. Oh, a perfect example is the Prioress, Madame Eglantine. The narrator just goes on and on about her delicate manners and how hard she tries to act like a lady of the court. She speaks French, sure, but it's with a clunky English accent. Her priorities just seem a little off for a nun, you know? He spends lines and lines admiring her table manners, telling us how she never spills a single drop. Now think about that. He's praising her for her etiquette, not her piety or her charity. It is a textbook example of Chaucer's subtle, winking irony. So what's the deal here? Is she really a devout servant of God? Or is she someone who's way more concerned with her social status and how she looks to other people? Chaucer just lays out the details and lets you decide. And Chaucer had another tool for showing this gap between appearance and reality. It was a kind of medieval shortcut called physiognomy. It was the idea that your physical features could reveal your inner character. So a gap in your teeth, like the wife of Bath has, suggested you were lustful. A wart on the nose, like the Millers, meant you were crooked. It was a visual code that his audience would have picked up on instantly, connecting a person's face directly to their soul. All right, so we've got this incredible cast of characters, the good, the bad, the hilarious. But how do we actually get to hear their stories? Well, that's where the game comes in. The host of the inn, a guy named Harry Bailey, he looks at this lively, chaotic group and has a stroke of genius. He knows they can't just ride all the way to Canterbury, dumb as a stone, in total silence. So he proposes a competition. The rules are pretty simple. Everybody tells 2 stories on the way there and 2 more on the way back. The host gets to be the judge. And the winner gets a free supper paid for by everybody else. And with a free meal on the line, of course, everybody is totally on board. But here's the kicker, the criteria for winning. This is the key to the whole book. The best story isn't just the most entertaining, and it's not the one with the heaviest moral. It has to have both, the best sentence and most salas, the best meaning and the most entertainment. And that just sets the stage for everything that follows. This religious pilgrimage suddenly becomes a storytelling showdown, a journey not just for salvation, but for bragging rights. And it leaves us with the very same question the pilgrims were grappling with. What really makes a story great? Is it the moral, the entertainment, or that perfect, elusive blend of both?